Okay, so this video is on how do you make a grid system in webflow for Boss Battle 2. And so notice this is the layout we have. Notice these things are centered, so on this bigger view there's area around it. So let's consider how we do that here. Now obviously there's also a mobile version, and I probably should have shown that too real quick. If we go to that, we'll see, oh look, it no longer has that edge area, so we'll figure that all out. So the first thing you want to do probably is go in and add a section. And this section will give us kind of a overly big row, so that if when a container, we're going to put a container in next, it'll have background. So to exemplify that, I'm sorry, you probably hear my dog prancing around because we're stuck in the house because it's all crappy outside. Is this. This is just, I'm going to do this for a background color, right? Just so you see what's going on here. So the next thing I need is I need to put a container in. Now I told you we're not going to use the natural container that they add for us because the size, I find it to be ridiculous. They make it too small. We're actually going to use just a div block, right? And now this div block would obviously make the same size as the thing. So we're going to need to change that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, now see there's an existing container class, so we can't actually call it container or it will conflict with what Webflow already has set up for us. So I'm going to call this baby my-container because you're going to need multiple of these, trust me. Okay, so I have, whoops, it didn't take that. You can't hit tab, you have to hit enter. There we go, my container. And right now this div is the same size as our section, and we don't want that, right? So what we want to do is put in a max width, right? So we want our max width, I don't have the Studio Boss Battle numbers in my head. I think the max width might be 1160. So I'm gonna go ahead and say 1160 pixels, right? So my container, 1160. So now you see, you can barely see it on my screen because I'm just a little small. Can I get this a little smaller so you can see what's going on there? Well, anyway, trust me that there's a little space between there. It's a little hard to see in this context. Maybe for, just for purposes of exemplifying this, I'm going to change this to 1000. Maybe that's what it says in Boss Battle anyhow. So notice now it's 1000 pixels and we have it there. So this, we need to center this, right? And the simple answer is just to go to spacing, and if you click this button right here, it'll go ahead and centered. So now we have this centered context. So we have our container set up, we have this row, and I'm going to give this container a color again just so that we can see what's going on. Maybe I should have done that earlier. So I'm just going to give it a, I don't know, any color. Doesn't matter. I'm not doing design here. So you see my container is this color. So the next thing I need to do is set up a row. So this is, we're really talking about at this point, whoops, where is it at, right? The, we need this entire setup for every one of these sections in actuality, right? So section, maze section, right? So, oh, and probably your navigation is section. So you need 5 of this setup. But now I'm talking specifically about this section, these columns here that lays out at 3 here, and it lays out like this here. And there's multiple ways to do this in what's this called? Webflow. So probably the really easiest way to do this is to just use their columns. Their columns thing is actually this this slick like flex wrapper here. So if I just grab these columns out and I throw it in my container, well, now we see the settings here. And so at the largest size, you saw we need it to be 3. So we'd set it up for 3, which you see that's 4. It's a 12-unit grid, no matter what. So I can drag these and change these all I want, but we just want 3 here. And then just for simplicity, I'm going to put in some content here. I'm going to go ahead and grab, I don't know, a paragraph. Put a paragraph in each of these just so I have some content. Paragraph and paragraph. Okay, so I'm even going to change one just so we can see it's still a flex box and everything stays the same. So that's really it, right? We've set it up, except for now as we go lower, at some point, right? We want it to, so Flexbox, or I'm sorry, Webflow actually does for us automatically with these columns, it switches it into this responsive context, right? So actually we could do this and get away with it and we'd be fine. But I'm going to show you a different way to do it because you may need to do this a different way. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and delete this columns. And I'm going to build this Flexbox wrapper completely on my own to show you, because you see you're going to need to do that thing with the icons and stuff, so you need to be aware of where Flexbox is and things like that. So now inside of my container, I'm actually going to go ahead and put another div. And I'm going to give it a class. Now again, there are some problems with existing classes I've noticed. So I'm not going to call it flex-parent because I believe that's a class in it. You wouldn't know it, but through some testing I found it. I'm going to call this flex-p for flex-parent, because flex-parent I believe is taken in the namespace. This is where webflow can be a little bit of a problem. And that sets up our parent of a Flexbox container. And then what I'm going to do is put in 3 more divs into this. So div, another div, I want it to be underneath that div, right? So notice the stacking order. And another div, right? So I want it to be underneath and not inside of the other divs, right? So we want it like this. This is the flex-p div. Oops, did I screw this up here? I'm looking at the classes here. Okay, so I need to put this class back on this for some reason. Flex-p, okay? And then these are flex items. So I'm gonna give, can I grab all 3 at once? No, I cannot. So I'm gonna put flex flexi. I'm gonna say flexi, and I'm gonna say flexi, and flexi is for flex item, right? So you've got our flex parent. Why does it keep losing that tag? You know what? I have a tendency to hit tab instead of enter. That's probably what's going on there. There we go. Okay. So there it is. It's got there. And so now with layout, right here below it, we see we can choose different ones. And so this right here is flex, right? So if I'm going to turn this flex parent into a flex container by hitting that. And so this automatically turns the flex I. So now by having these classes here, everything I apply to this one will apply to all 3 of these. And so what do I want to do? I want to put its width at 33.33%. Okay? And so now we have no things in it. Let me hit Command Z for a second. Let's actually put something in that so that it doesn't do something crazy. I'm just going to go ahead and put a paragraph in each one of these. So just slowly, paragraphs in each div. Oh, where's the, oh, there it is right there. Div. There it is, div. Okay, so I've got these 3 paragraphs, and this flexi, I'm going to make sure now I put that within 33. I know you see automatically it has 33, but we're going to actually type in these widths because it's going to change things as we go through the responses. So I'm going to put in the width as 33.3%, and that will be applied to all the flexi ones. Now, right, the whole point is that we have to, when we get smaller, change over to these being 100%. And right now, if we went through these, we see that they stay at the, unlike the columns, we're building that flex item ourselves. And again, you may need to know how to use this. So I'm going to say at this one, I want these to be 100%. And the simple answer is, the nice thing about how Webflow works is as long as I'm in this context and I have this class on here, right, all I have to do is now say 100%, right, and hit enter. It's not entering. And it's not working. So let's see what the problem is here. Okay, so I had to pause the video real quick, or stop the video and re-record a little bit because I forgot one thing. So again, we have to do, it has to be 100% at this level, but we have to set up one thing on our flex parent. So select your flex parent and notice that you'll have different options once you turn something into flex, you get all these different options. The first thing we need to do is set a wrap to our container, because if we don't wrap, then it just won't go down to the next row. So we have to tell that parent to be a wrap container. And now notice now we've got these things. Webflow works a little weird. So on the 100%, we need these flex items to be 33.3%. So I'm going to say 33.33%. Now we're back to our column rows, so our 3 columns. And now what we need to do is when we go down lower, right, these need to be 100%. So at the context we want it to change. It's as simple as, now that we've set up everything right, we say 100%, and there it is. So it's 3, 3, and now they're taking up the full space. So do you understand what's going on there? Pretty simple to use Webflow. Again, you would just set up the context. So now, again, one thing for responsive, notice now it's got no space between. So we would probably have to work on the container all the way through. So let me select my container. So here I have a max width of 1000. I don't remember what it is inside the instructions for Studio 2, but the simple answer is go to the next breakpoint and type in, I don't know, maybe you want it now to be 768 pixels, right? So notice the sides there. One other thing that will happen here is that there's no padding here on the sides. You may want to use padding for some reason. I'm not really sure you need it necessarily, as long as you have this edge area. But obviously, if you wanted to use padding, right, you could do something like this to add padding in that container. I don't think it's going to be necessary for the way I have Boss Battle 2 set up. But I think this should get you through a good deal of getting Boss Battle 2 finished in Webflow.